there's a problem, I like to solve it. And that's a great quality at times, but there's also times where it's either not your problem to solve, or it's solving everyone else's problems doesn't give them the opportunity to learn through them, because often that's where you do some of your biggest
So
learning.
today
So
we got Adam Green on the show. He's a father, he's a husband, and he's a high-ranking leader in Young Living Essential Oils. And he began his entrepreneurship full time at the age of 22. And I really thought he could bring some good insight today on understanding the entrepreneurial woman. He's been around it a lot, and I really feel like he can bring a lot to this conversation because in my work, in Laura's work, we deal with a lot of couples, and a lot of what we hear is the man's not supporting his woman in whatever endeavors that is. But typically, when a woman wants to go off and do something more on the entrepreneurial side, or any kind of multi-level marketing, or any kind of even brick and mortar or online, anything like that, it's kind of it starts off with a lot of excitement, and then all of a sudden the man just really isn't supporting whatever that looks like with housework, kids, emotional support, anything like that, right? So like I say, I brought Adam on, and I really feel like he can bring a lot to this conversation. You're listening to the Revive Couple Podcast. We're Michael and Laura, and together we'll explore everything relationships, personal responsibility, feminine and masculine dynamics, communication, and just some all-around real and raw conversations.
Drawing from our 18 years together, with a bit of sarcasm, humor, tears, a few and lots of love, we deep dive into the male and female perspectives on relationships and navigating the highs and lows of life together. Sit back, grab your love mug, and let's get into today's conversation.
Welcome.
great to be here. Thanks for having me. First time.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thanks for being here. And I just talking to you about that before. It's like it's first time for me too. So this will be good being on this side of things and asking questions. But after that little blurb, I just let's hear a little bit about you. What's your background, and what's your, like I said, you started full-time entrepreneurship at 22, and what did that look like?
Yeah, I was so I went full time into network marketing at the age of 22 in November of 2011. And before that, I was a personal trainer. I went to Red Deer College for 2 years for kinesiology, then was a personal trainer for 2.5 years, and loved helping people, loved being part of their health and wellness journey and whatnot. But I didn't really like the hours that came with personal training. You kind of had to work when everyone else didn't work. Lots of split shifts, early mornings, late nights. And so I, at 21 specifically, because I went full time at 22, I really started being more intentional about trying to find a different way to earn an income. At that age, lots of times people say go back to school, get a different education, a different job. But really knew that I wanted to earn more money, and I want to have more control of my own lifestyle. I was single at that time, but I knew I wanted to have a family at one point, and I just knew that personal training income and lifestyle was not as conducive to the family I wanted to eventually have. So I started looking for different ways to earn incomes, and I ended up learning about network marketing and became really interested in the business model, and then specifically, Young Living Essential Oils, which is what I ended up building. I grew up around like natural health and wellness. My mom was an acupuncturist, so I grew up around like Chinese tinctures, herbs, oils, like everything that was kind of like weird we had in our house. So like natural wellness was already kind of part of my ethos. And so I started doing Young Living full time. First, I like really incorporated part time into like my personal training. So people were looking for ways to, reduce muscle soreness, have more energy, support their immune system, things like that. And so I left. I left personal training in November 2011 and started doing, Young Living full time. And I ended up working with a lot of women specifically, because one of the very first events that I did outside of personal training was end up at a trade show of sorts. I'd met through a local chiropractor at different business events, and she said, "Hey, like we're having this expo. We'd love to have like an oils vendor come through, so like you should do it." And so, I didn't have a job. I was doing this full time, so I signed up for it. And what I didn't know at the moment is it was a natural birthing expo. Specifically, it was a documentary screening of The More Business of Being Born. And so it's all about natural birthing. And they had like the screening of the documentary, and then they had kind of like a vendor side to support, women. women. And so I was like the only male vendor there. I brought my mom with me to kind of bail me out because I'm like, oh, like, yeah, you can help me with this. And so I'm like the only guy there. I'm with my mom at this natural birthing expo. And so I'm like trying to talk about essential oils and health remedies and whatnot to all these people. And in the background, there's just natural birthing just going on, like full audio visual. I'm beside my mom and I'm thinking like I've completely ruined my life. But from that event, I met a great couple, Megan and Travis Baldwin out of Red Deer, and they bought an oil kit, and then we went to their house afterwards. A couple maybe weeks later, showed them and some of their friends how to use the products, and it kind of grew organically from there into a large portion of our business. And at 22 years old with no girlfriend and no kids, and I end up basically in this business where I was surrounded specifically by younger moms who, probably had 1 to 4 kids, all from newborn up until teens, and so I'm surrounded by all these moms who are all looking to use essential oils and health remedies, but then they also got into the entrepreneurship side of network marketing, and so I stumbled into the realm of working specifically with women and young moms, and it worked out for me. And I mean, it's crazy looking back at being over 10 years ago now, how much things have changed, how much I've learned, how much I've seen. Now I got 2 kids of my own, and I get to see it through a completely different lens. But it's been a great journey, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, that's awesome. That could have went either way. I guess you could end up as a doula as well. So good thing. I guess it's good for everybody the way it worked out. I don't know how that would have been, but no, that's awesome, man. And it's awesome to hear that story because it comes from any like the least expect. Like Laura and I talk about it a lot. Is the path you think you're on, or the path you think is going to get you to this entrepreneurship, whatever, leadership or success, however that looks. It's always the path that kind of winds and turns, and the one that ended up at you at a natural birthing place that you would never think to be at, right? Is the
If
one
I
that was got you going.
if I had known that's what it really was, and like the depths of what it looked like, my ego would have kept me out of that room for sure. Like I wouldn't like I could have stayed at home and played video games. I could have done anything else that seemed more fun than that. But it's cliche in probably network marketing and all personal growth aspects, but the idea that growth really comes outside of your comfort zone. And I've definitely found that most times in my career where I've got the best results is where I was usually highly uncomfortable, and it produced better.
Oh no, that's great. So speaking of that, like what beliefs did you have to change to allow success to come? Because like I say, we can talk about it more how successful you really are in this, but like what beliefs did you have to start to change, especially coming from that personal training realm, just that young guy, no girlfriend, no real what would I call it? Not responsibilities, because you have responsibilities, but you're essentially free young guy, right? Like what did you have to change to allow that success to come in?
Yeah, I had a lot of like real core limiting beliefs that I held on to for a long time until I realized they didn't serve me. And some of them being, at the time I was Young Living as a whole catered more towards an older demographic and a more female demographic. Like I think at that point, it's way different than today. Today it's much different, but back then I think it was like 58 and female was kind of like the average demographic of the company, and I was 22 and a guy. So like I stuck out like a sore thumb. Everyone who had kind of like a blueprint for success, I didn't really meet any of that criteria, and so for a long time, I told myself stories like, I'm too young, no one's going to take me seriously, specifically from a business perspective. I don't have much business training or background. I'm talking about oils and kids, and like I don't have any kids. I'm closer to being a kid than actually using them on it myself. Um, and yeah, like like the things that I felt like I couldn't change were the things that I felt like I held on to the most because I felt almost like helpless towards it. So like I'm a guy and I'm a young, like I'm not changing those things. So those were the ones that were really easy to hold on to as far as like a crutch for maybe why I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be at certain points. But then I just again I found angles to make what could be seen as a weakness my strength. So I didn't have any children, but I had experience of using the oils as a young adult, so to speak. So like I found ways that I could leverage parts of my story into a different way. Like even at that expo, I went and had shirts made up that said "Mama" and "Mama's Boy," and so I was like, okay, well, I get some, little tug in the heartstrings, and have people come to want to talk to me. Um, and then, being young, like I just had an energy about me that maybe people who were more seasoned at times didn't have, and I was passionate, and I had just a lot of things that really were great assets to growing the business I was able to grow. But I kind of had to dig for them. I had to search for them, and then I had to lean into those strengths, and then really work on believing them internally, not just like affirming them, saying, "Oh, I am these things, I am these things," but truly like believing and knowing that that is what I brought to the table. And that's realistically, I actually became quite successful at it well before I truly internalized a lot of the things. Like probably almost took 4 years to really get to the point where I felt like I had almost like an inner peace of knowing who I truly felt like I was. That's a whole nother. That's we go deep into that, but
No, hey, I like that avenue. We might have to go down that avenue another, or maybe even later on. That's great because I see that absolutely, and I feel like that's where most men, at least, that's where most men stumble, right? And most of us is we get stuck in our own head, we get stuck in that ego, and we think we have to be something, or we put on this little bit of a mask almost that we can't just be who we really are and really express ourselves, and that's what gets you to success. That's what gets you out of the mundane. That's what makes you extraordinary. And that's I was just talking to a guy the other day, like that's what makes you memorable, right? Like that's be a man to remember when you're gone, like your time's long gone, people will still talk about you. And it comes from being outside that comfort zone and just knowing yourself, right? And really feeling into it, because it's so easy to fall in line and do what everyone else does and just be the mediocre and live life, and that's all it is. But when you really step out, that's when you get to experience obviously what you get to experience now, right? A lot of those joys, a lot of that freedom, and a lot
mhm,
of that just happiness, right? And just options, I guess, would be the best way to put it. You get options.
yep.
No, that's great, man. So I know you work with a lot of women. We were talking about that already. Like, what are some of the struggles that you see with women when they start building their business?
Especially like if they have children, there's a constant pull of priorities because before you introduce any kind of entrepreneurship into the household in general, if that doesn't exist currently, usually there's other responsibilities that everyone is usually pretty busy. No, I don't know too many people that are sitting around twiddling their thumbs going, I don't have anything to do. Like people have 24 hours in a day, they usually find a way to use them. So the constant pull of different priorities, the relationship of a spouse, the relationship with the children. Lots of my network is like homeschool, so there's that whole pull and time focus, and then you introduce just a business of any kind, and it really kind of can rock the boat a little bit as far as what life looks like on a day-to-day basis. um and then with that, the dynamics inside the relationship can change. Usually I found, at least the core women that I've had the pleasure of working with, a lot of them uh it's kind of sought out entrepreneurship as a way to maybe fill a little bit of a gap, or if you spend all day at home and you're not surrounded by adults as much, and you're you're talking about potties and Paw Patrol and like whatever age of life and kids are doing, you kind of crave a little semblance of different. And I think entrepreneurship can really provide that for a lot of women. So they kind of lean into it as almost like a social aspect in the beginning, many of them, because they're looking for just something to get out and do that's not the norm. That's not what they're, feel, um, stuck in to a certain extent at times. And, from there, some of them are able to actually earn some income and make some money. But I think that's where sometimes the relationship struggles come in, because initially it's like, fine, you go out, do your thing. I'm happy to, carry some extra load, so you can, do this thing. But then when it becomes consistent, then if the communication has not been there, so communication is, you probably know, in the relationship is key. Uh, Communication expectations are things that really either make or break these kinds of conversations, because If the guy's gone out and is helping out around the house, babysitting at times, bad
Yeah,
term, but like,
yeah, I
it's how
love
they
that one.
feel. Like, I feel like I'm babysitting, even though it's your own kids. Like, it's called parenting. Um, there can be resentment that creeps in. It's like, well, you're going out more often now because, you like what you're doing. And I feel like I'm on a rabbit hole of like three different ideas here. Of like,
No, that's
bring
perfect,
me
and
back
that's the
in, like,
one. No, that's the one where I'm almost thinking of, because that was my next question of like, what do you think men's preconceived ideas are, and that's almost what it is they start to feel neglected a little bit, in my mind anyway, right? And I almost felt that a little bit when my wife, she started a long time ago. She was actually doing a candle business years and years and years ago, before I really recognized a lot of things in myself, and before I was really working on myself. So I almost felt some of that of, feeling, you met this girl, you met this woman, and she was doing her thing, and she's, she fell into whatever category you put her in, right? Like she was my girlfriend, and she did the X amount of things, but she was always around when I needed her, or whatever that looked like. She was maybe not even strong enough to have some certain conversations, right? So you had this kind of over top of her, I
dominant.
guess. And yeah, like you were the dominant male, right? And in a bad way, or in a not very productive way, but you had that over top of her. And now she's, getting lit up. She's really falling into it, like really being herself, being lit up. She's radiant. She's making some money. She's being independent. She's popular now, right? Like women are, messenger or talking to her. Or she's getting almost semi quasi famous in her circle, right? And if there is events, like she's up on stage talking, and she just all these things that really start to wear away on, like, oh no, I'm not good enough now for her, and she's gonna leave me, or whatever these fears are, right? For most
Yeah.
men. And I know, and then you start to almost sabotage in a way, not well, hopefully not consciously, right? But a lot of subconscious sabotaging with just little things to keep kind of holding her back just enough, right? Whatever that looks like. Maybe it is throwing the kids kind of in her face of, they need their mom, whatever that looks like, right? Or even time, or just maybe as a man feeling neglected, or not getting that intimacy that you wanted or needed, or whatever that looks like. But as most men go through it, I feel, and I really hope that it's subconsciously. But like I say, I know there's a lot of jealousy, and a lot of things holding these guys back, right? And I'm sure, I don't know what you see on your end, because you kind of see the whole gamut, right? You see from women starting out all the way up to your leaders and your partners in your business, right? So I guess a good question would be, what do you see from the people starting out, and how does that dynamic look a little bit? And then what do you see from like the diamonds and the above leaders, that what do you see kind of relationship wise and partnership wise?
Well, usually the ones who end up having more success typically also have had pretty decent support at home. Um, Not everyone by all means, but I would say more times than not, there's a supportive partner at home compared to someone who's either actively or subconsciously working against them. Because like, there really isn't even neutralness. Like, you're either working for or you're against. It's either one or the other. So no, I've seen definitely the impact it can have, either having support or not having support. I think one of the best ways to get support is to have like a family meeting, whatever that looks like in your own dynamic, but like actually having a sit down and kind of laying out expectations. So, because I feel like one of the biggest changes that happens is before you introduce entrepreneurship into the life, you have a certain routine. Maybe you both have jobs. You're gone from, let's say, 9 to 5, and then you get home and you have your dinner together, and then maybe you watch a movie or Netflix, or whatever you do in your social or after work time. The second you introduce any kind of entrepreneurship, side hustle, network marketing, whatever tangent of entrepreneurship you go into, it changes time priorities, because there has to be a sacrifice somewhere, and it's usually extra time. So now you both come home from work, and you have dinner, and then the other person's slipping out for the evening, and maybe it's you can only do it 2 nights a week. That's a conversation to have. Like, what, I'm fine with you doing this, but I would like to allocate certain time for our relationship. um the the biggest issue kind of really comes is when both parties are not on the same page, and they're not communicating, and they're not understanding what the other person's trying to do, maybe what the end game is, what they're getting from it. um
Yeah, just making sure those goals are lined up, right? I
Yeah,
know
because
once we
if you're on
got
the same, you're
yeah.
on the same team.
Yes, yes, exactly. I harp on a lot about that, right? Like life is hard enough on the outside. There's stuff happening everywhere. You have to be a team, right? You have to have a plan, you have to have some goals, but you have to be a team and realize that if you guys are fighting or if there's any kind of headbutting or anything like that, it's not good for the team. You're not going to win anything, right? But if everyone's playing together and knowing their roles and doing their roles and whatever that looks like, if we equate it to hockey, like sometimes you're the forward, sometimes you're defenseman or whatever that is, but making sure that everyone's working in tandem, because once you start fighting each other in the house, then it just like, what's the point, right? It makes everything so hard.
And one of the other dynamics of if you're starting a business of any kind is there's like there's a huge difference between being an employee and a business owner, because the second you're the owner of a business, uh, it sometimes can take over your life. Like, like it doesn't just shut off at 5 p.m., and that's a different dynamic. So especially with cell phones these days, and everyone can work from their phone and social media, it can be really tough. And I'm very guilty for this, of like not turning off,
Hmm.
almost feeling like you're always turned on and accessible, and that can be really hard on a relationship, because it's if you're always being drawn towards the ding of your phone, it doesn't make anyone in the room feel like they're as important.
No, and you nailed it, I think, earlier with having that conversation, having that team meeting of setting some boundaries and what those boundaries look like. And it is, put your phone away at 9 p.m. or whatever that is, but actually setting some, not ground rules, but just making some boundaries that, if they have to flex, they can. But at the same time, it's an understanding between in the partnership, right, of where things are going and what needs to happen. And if we have it written out clearly of, I need these things from you as a man to the wife, and as the wife to the man, I need your support in these certain areas of, if I have a meeting or if I have a party or whatever that looks like, can you take care of X, Y, and Z for me, right?
Yeah, because I feel like, so far, if I've probably been more sandbagging on the guys, talking about like, you got to, do certain things, support the women. I've seen more successful women who are supported, but equally, I've seen, if they're, again, if someone's priorities aren't appropriate, and they're spending too much time maybe on a business, not allocating time towards a relationship. Like, there's no point in building something and losing something at the same time. Like, usually people are building a business because they want certain things, whether it's more freedom, more money, uh, you know more flexibility in their current life, whatever it is. But to sacrifice your core relationship, which is you know a sacred part of who you are, is not worth it. So it's not worth it to ruin a relationship over a business. So like there's both parties, again, it's same team, gotta be on the same page. Uh and it's crazy because I've seen such a gambit of different relationship dynamics, and I'm not a relationship counselor. Usually when I'm consulting with people, I'm like, I'm here to deal with your business. I can help you with sales and business and oils. I'm not here to counsel your your relationship, so to speak, and act as an intermediary. Like, it's crazy. I have seen people who supported their spouse to a certain extent, but then when they got to they actually were becoming more successful. They're making more than they're spending. They're bringing home profit. Uh, I've seen like so many elements of sabotage. I've even seen people who have basically have made their spouse cancel their account, even though like I've seen people making two, three, $4,000 a month and in profit, which that's a some, depending on what your income levels are, that's like a full time or a part time income. Like, that's huge. That's an extra full income stream into your family, which especially like that's valuable. And I've seen people just like literally walk away from it all because of toxicity and lack of communication, and just like them being so on different pages that they do walk away from the business completely, which is, I think, a shame, because you've done a certain level of effort to get to that point. I don't think it needs to be that way, but people are can be fickle, and we can be toxic at times, and yeah.
No, it is. And I really wish, and I talk to a lot of guys about this, is I really wish that more men realized that having your woman lit up and happy and in her, in her creative genius and just in her flow and in her feminine. Like, I really wish that people would realize that that makes a better world. It makes a better relationship, makes it better for the kids, makes it better for community, makes it better for your friends, your extended family. Like, most guys don't realize, or they think that they have to have their woman in a certain whatever bracket, I guess we'll call it, right? Like, she does these things for me and that's what she does. But if they can really let her be free and be open and be in her feminine, like, the world is literally your oyster. Like, just get on and like get on board with that and ride that out and be the man she needs, whatever that looks like. Provide for her, protect her, be that safe zone. And man, like, the world is just your oyster at that point. But again, there's so much work on the back end of that, of having to break down your ego, having to really have to look inside and realize, talk to that inner child and like, what hurts have you been in the past? How can you help support that? Why are you wearing this mask of having to be this big macho guy, of not letting your woman be the woman she needs to be? Like, there's so many different aspects to it, right? You're very fortunate because you get to almost have like a working study going, because you see all of this, right, on a daily basis. So it just, you get to see it all. And like I say, it is a shame of having to ruin a good business or ruin something that had the potential to be, skyrocket, all because of someone's hurt feelings, or a guy feeling like a little boy that just can't support his woman.
Yeah, and I've lived it on a different side in the sense that I've been the core business builder inside of our business for the past decade, and Vanessa, my wife, has not shown the same level of interest and passion towards our specific business that because it started with me, and then she kind of got brought into it. And I met her through Young Living, and so at the beginning, I wanted to try and make her be me. Like, I'm like, oh, this is what I like doing. This is what I want to do. This is our business together. So you should be as equally doing this as I am. But it wasn't her passion. It wasn't her core focus. It wasn't what she wanted to do. And so there was, you know, probably, yeah, years in there where there wasn't exactly perfect harmony, because she wasn't really living the way that she wanted to. She wasn't doing exactly what she wanted to, and she was doing it because I was you know not making her, but she was there. It was out of obligation and not out of passion. And I think whether it's business or in your relationship, like, if you're doing stuff out of obligation inside your relationship, that's not a good place to be coming from. You want to be doing things out of passion and desire to do it. And so, when we actually had better communication and figure out, hey, what roles do you want to operate under? What do you like to do? What do you want to do versus what I want to do? And got on more the same page. Like, then I stopped expecting things of her, because I had expectations. Like, when you have expectations that don't meet reality, then it just leaves everyone in a poor situation. So when I got my expectations better lined up with her desires and her goals, she was happier. I was actually happier. We had better communication from it all, because I stopped expecting her to do things that she really didn't want to be doing that much. And I also, the things that I expected her to do were things that I actually like doing. But I was like, well, if we can lighten the load here, and you can do this much and I'll do this much. But when I actually focus on doing more of it, things that she didn't want to do, we got better results, because I was operating where I was happy. She wasn't feeling obligated to do things that she didn't really like to do as much, and we got better results and better relationship in the same process.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point, man. And it's funny you mentioned Vanessa. I was going to ask you next, of like, what kind of support did you need on the back end of that from her? Like, what, as a partner on the other side, as your woman, like, what were you seeing that helped out I know you kind of mentioned it already, but like, what helped you even go higher from when the marriage took off?
Well, one thing that was very apparent, she was never trying to like hold me back. And basically, if I felt like something needed to be done for our business, she was supportive in me doing that. So I traveled a lot in some of those early days, like 2013 to 2017. I haven't traveled now in like 2.5 years, so it's completely different. But like, I was doing just so many events. I was speaking all over Canada, the US, even did some international stuff
Yeah, I
over,
guess
like,
we met up in London even, right? Like,
yeah, like, yeah, exactly. And so some of that stuff she was along with it, which is great. You know, you can travel together, but there was a lot of it where we were apart. So there's a sacrifice there because, you know, you want to be together, and especially if you're traveling and seeing and experiencing stuff, sometimes it's, you know, it's always nicer to kind of have them around. But, you know, for me, she just was very supportive in, you know, for lack of a better term, like I was hustling, grinding
Hmm.
it out, and like I think of some of the months, you know, I was all over Western Canada. This is like February of 2014. I was going for a big goal, didn't hit it, but I was going for it. And February is 28 days. You know, our business operates on a monthly basis, and so you know, you kind of cramming everything into the shortest month of the year. And I remember doing events in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and I was just literally like hop on a plane, go do a couple events, hop on a plane, go do a couple events, and I did like 26 events in 28 days, which was probably the most intensive of any time I've done. Um, but it led to greater results. And, you know, that was a busy month, and probably saw her less in that month than maybe she would have liked, but it had positive results because you know you're able to do a certain amount of work once and get some benefit from it long term. So, you know, all in all, I think one of the biggest things she was just very supportive of me going and doing the work that I felt needed to be done.
Hmm.
And again, that's what we advocate for on the other end. You know, I'm the dynamic of like I was the one who was out there doing things, and so she had some sacrifices on her end, but I specifically mostly work with predominantly women, and so that's what we kind of advocate for the men is like, you know, you know, there is some sacrifices that can be made. um, Communicate about them, but like lean into letting them do what they feel like they need to do to get the results that they want to get in their business. And so it's not like we're advocating for different things for different people here. It's the same, I just with different dynamic in our relationship.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like I say, if people realize how once they let that woman be that strong woman, like in their kids' eyes, even, right? Like you watching your mom do these things, like it's pretty special. And I think you talked about that maybe before, maybe not even on this call, but like your mom was an entrepreneur, right? Kind of, and she was more of the breadwinner in the family, and just watching that strong woman in your life, right? Like it was pretty amazing. I assume
Yeah,
it
my
was.
my parents ran a physiotherapy and acupuncture clinic. So my mom was the one who went to post secondary to be a physiotherapist and acupuncturist, and my dad worked jobs to help put her through school. So they've been together. I don't know, I think it's 50. No, 50. No, 40 something. 40 plus years. I'm not gonna put it
A long time, yeah.
long time. And so like he worked hard to help her get through school, but she was the one who was, you know, college educated, and then they started their own practice. So again, they ran it together. He kind of ran like the bookkeeping, the business aspect of the back end of it, but she was the practitioner. So they established roles, they ran their own business, brick and mortar style. And you know, I but because my mom was one who was the one who actually was in clinical practice, you know, my dad did most of the cooking, and we were home with him almost more than we were home with her because she was the one who was in clinic, you know, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, and his roles were more elastic, you know, like bookkeeping and month end stuff. Like I remember him sitting on the computer late at night doing payroll and doing these different back end things. But again, my dad was more home with us during the week. He's the one who's cooking dinner. I remember my mom getting home, you know, 8, 9 p.m. at night, and you know, got dinner heating up on the table for her and to say goodnight. And but yeah, like very again contrasting roles almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say with that, I know that's a lot of men's fears, and if, being a stay-at-home dad or whatever, and not being that masculine role, right? Not being that big, bringing home the bacon, or that I guess in your mind, like what did that look like for you? Did your dad seem like any less of a man in your eyes, or did he, what kind of
No,
feelings did you have to look towards that, right?
like it's it's funny how you know you get these different you know core societal roles, you know, although like there may be a certain stereotype and yeah, maybe more people not fit into it, like when someone goes against it, it doesn't make them not as good or less than anyone else. It's just different. But like as a kid, I didn't know any different. Like I would have thought everyone was like that.
Yeah,
Maybe.
no, absolutely. And I know you like with hunting and things like that, like you're still doing all that anyway, right? Like it wasn't like
Yeah, it's
it
not like
wasn't you know, it's funny because we deal with a lot of this, right? Like I deal with a lot of masculine and femininity and roles, right? And quite fitting into those roles, but you can still be that guy. Like, yeah, making the food, doing the dishes, helping out with homework, helping the kids do whatever they got to do. But then on the back end of that, you're still your dad's still a strong guy. He's still, you know, taking you. I'm assuming like taking you out hunting and doing different things, right? And
yeah.
teaching you still
Yeah,
those
he's still
manly
that
things.
he's still the head of the household. Like I don't think that the idea of like being the person who potentially makes most of the money, if there is one role that makes more, whether it's the guy or the girl, like I don't think that is the core determinant of what should be relation dynamics. Like and again, there's probably plenty of different opinions on it. Like we've always had shared bank accounts. Like it's never been like your money, my money. It's like it's our money, it's our life. And people could have different opinions on that, but that's just how we've always been from day one. Because again, same team. This isn't you do your thing, I'll do my thing. Like that's not what I view a marriage as being and a relationship as being. So if someone has different opinions on that, then that's
No, I,
yeah.
I I love that. That's exactly where I fit in, right? Like everyone's like, "Oh, how much money did you got to pay half your mortgage or pay half the bills?" Like, what is happening right now? It's like shit goes in the pot, man, and we make it work, and we're everyone takes from that pot, right? As a family and as a team, and we make decisions together as a team. So now with the success that you have, that opens a lot of doors, right? Gives you a lot of freedom, time freedom. I mean, work is work, and you still have to work, and I understand that better than most now. But at the same time, more time with your kids, more intentional time with your kids, kind of opening more doors now into more entrepreneurial ventures, even, right? Like I know you
Yeah.
have a few other things on the go. Maybe you can talk to that a bit. But where does now Vanessa, is she taking more of a role in some of those other kind of call them passion projects, or just with leading into more freedom and more what, just sense of adventure almost, right? Try different things and do different things.
Yeah, like like as for as long as I've known Vanessa, like she's one of her like things she's always just wanted to be is like she's wanted to be a mom, and so she's got the freedom and flexibility. We got two kids, 2 and 4, so super fun ages. So she's able to lean into them in a way that she wouldn't be able to if we didn't have this level of freedom that we have. But she's able to do. She's learning so many things. Like she picked up like knitting this year. She's learned the piano. She's singing more. Like she's really getting clear on like what things she either wants to learn to do or what she likes doing. And I'm encouraging her to like do those things. And then we bought some real estate last year. We bought an orchard that's nearby to where we live that has kind of like a kids activities fruit stand type setup. So that's more of we bought that last year, so we've only had half a season of really dealing with it. But right again, initially, again, conversation, new business kind of comes into play, new dynamics, and so initially I can kind of be overbearing and like be like, oh, try and take over all things business related. But it was also clear that she had a knack for some of the things that I maybe didn't have, and so we had more of a conversation around. Okay, well, I think this is maybe more up your alley. And although I think I've got things I can add to it and you can consult me with me whenever you want, I think it's probably best for both of us if you lean into it and it's, if we're gonna allocate, okay, whose core responsibility is this? It would be yours. And then we're both happy with whatever results you're able to generate. So I don't turn into micromanaging because it's really easy to always think like, well, I could do it differently than that, or I could do it better, and just like, oh, I'll just step in and fix everything. I think I maybe everyone's not like this, but I tend to be if there's a problem, I like to solve it, and that's a great quality at times. But there's also times where it's either not your problem to solve, or it's solving everyone else's problems doesn't give them the opportunity to learn through them, because often that's where you do some of your biggest learning. So I've really had to, especially the past year, like trying to like internal, like, okay, is this my problem? If it is my problem, is it my problem like to solve? Or I've also learned that sometimes it's better just to she wants me to listen but doesn't want me to actually provide the solution. I'm there to be a sounding board but not solve it.
Holy, that's a silver bullet right there, buddy. That's what everyone needs in the relationship. It's takes a long time to get there though, right? And there's some I know
Really
myself. I
long
do.
time.
Yeah, and I hit my head against the wall quite a few times. You're talking to literally a professional problem solver. That's all I did my whole career, right? And that's what it was. Problem, go to Mike. That's what we got to do. And then learning to turn that switch and not do that with your wife, and really realize, and you put it well, of is this my problem to solve, or is this my problem to listen to and be the support for, right? So that's a gold nugget, man. That's a big one that most guys, you can tell them all day, but till you live that and really feel it, and once you actually feel that in the conversation and get some good communication going with your woman, it's like everything just changes, right? It takes
And
a
with
bit
me,
though.
it's usually like you'll do it once and you're like, oh, that worked really well. And then you revert back the next problem to like go right into problem solving mode. And then you're like, afterwards, you're like, oh man, I really screwed that up. Because like I'm realizing after the fact when things did not go the way that they should have went, I'm like, oh yeah, went back into problem solve mode and all they wanted was me to listen. Especially like again, this is where I revert to. It's like, before she's even finished telling me the problem, I'm already like ready to talk over and be like, okay, well, I know where you're going with this. I know the problem. Here's the answer. And like, I feel like I'm very like emotional, like fact over feeling. Like, okay, well, what are the core facts? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so here's the solution. But that's not very. Sometimes isn't. If someone's really feeling something, just like hammering them with the facts of why they're either not right or wrong doesn't ever lead to a proper solution.
No, but you nailed it. That's the masculine dynamic on exactly, right? I want facts. I want an outcome. I want the solution right there. Whereas female, or where more of the feminine energy is literally just the emotions, right? The emotions. How did that make you feel? Could be wrong, but if it made you feel good, then hey, the emotions are there, right? And it's the emotional side of things. And that's where most guys, you got to learn to, at times you have to sit on your hands and just bite your tongue and like, okay, listen and really be intentional about listening, and put your phone away, shut the TV off, and just listen to these emotions. And the payoff is tenfold, right? And I mean, this is a great way to even do that in business. She's gonna have she's gonna have issues, right? With any business, brick and mortar, online, MLM, whatever it looks like, there's gonna be issues, and you can be that sounding board for her, but don't try to solve those problems. Just be that person, be that emotional support, and she'll figure out how to solve them. Her team, her upline will help solve those problems, but you be there for the emotional support. And man, there couldn't be a better support for that.
Yeah, exactly. Because in most of the things we were talking about, usually if someone's getting into a business, they're probably not in it fully alone. Like there is resources out there that are basically dedicated towards helping you succeed in your business. So like those are areas that you can lean into and like, okay, look, I'm looking for solutions to these problems. Uh, you don't need your spouse to necessarily always provide them. So yeah, definitely, especially if you're in network marketing, like that's kind of what your support team is there for. And I was thinking about as we're talking about, the idea of like listening versus solving the problem. The old classic like comedy video about it's not about the nail. I'm sure, yeah. And
Oh
if
yeah.
you've never seen it, like I feel like everyone's seen it, but if you've not seen it, you can just
No,
go over
we'll
YouTube,
put it
like
in the show notes and stuff for sure, that video.
yeah, like I'm not gonna describe it. You watch it, and if you've never seen it, you'll love it. And if you have seen it, it's always good for a rewatch.
No, that's awesome, man. Well, like that's a good way to, that might even be a good spot to wrap it up, because that was going to be my last question of, what, when you're listening to the men out there that are listening, like what would be that silver bullet for, your entrepreneurial girlfriend, your entrepreneurial wife, like in your eyes, what do you see as that number one thing? But I think we almost nailed it with that
Yeah,
communication.
like yeah, I think get on the same page, ask them what they want, what they can do to support, and if there's any way in that dynamic that you're feeling not heard in yourself, you're not feeling supported, or you're feeling neglected, then it's better just get it out right away, or set a time to discuss that in a positive way where you're actually looking for a positive outcome. Because also feel like a lot of times you go into those conversations sometimes looking for a fight. Like you go in with the potentially the wrong intention. You go in with the wrong attitude. You go in with yeah the wrong vibe, and it usually doesn't end well for anybody. So yeah, get on the same page for both sides. You'll both be happier. You'll both be more successful, and it's better that way.
No, that's great, Adam. That's a great way to wrap it up. So, well, thank you for talking with me today and joining me. I know you're a busy guy, but where can people find you right now?
Well, I basically hang out at home all the time. I'm actually surprisingly considering I don't travel hardly anymore. I actually don't even use social media that much. Like I feel like I've pulled away from it, but I still have it. You can find me, on Facebook is my name, Adam Green. Instagram is where you can find maybe more day-to-day stuff here and there, and that's at Adam Green YL. And that's what I use. I don't have a TikTok or anything,
Come
anything like
on, you
that.
have a TikTok?
I
No,
don't.
that's awesome, man. Well, thank you again. Thank you for your time, and that's great, man. I'll talk to you later.
See you, Mike.
Thanks for listening. Check out our offerings on social media at The Revived Couple and online at therevivedcouple.com. Have a request for a show topic? We love that. Send us an email at michael@larocklife.com or DM at The Revived Couple.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.